Alrighty, we have just returned from the B.F.E GP at High Plains Raceway outside of Denver, Colorado, home of the boot. And of course, Denver, also known as the Mile High City, and everybody knows that you lose horsepower due to the decrease in air density.
Right.
And that's going to be the difference between winning and losing in lemons. So several teams combated this disadvantage by adding various forms of hoopty-ass forced induction to their engines. There was a turbo Celica, there was a supercharged Celica, there was a turbo BMW, and best of all, there was a turbo Miata.
Yeah, now I can't improve on what Phil wrote in his notes, so I'm just going to read it to you. This is from Phil. This team found a WRX turbocharger for cheap on Craigslist. And of course, they figured they'd add it to the Miata and dominate. The team captain is a GM electrical tech, of course, and figured he didn't trust the eyesore-style boost-controlled fuel pressure regulator. No, what he did was graft a jet fighter joystick from an arcade game onto the gear shift, with the trigger controlling a circuit that caused all the fuel injectors to dump max fuel. Then there's a light bulb on top of the shifter that indicates either something really bad or something really good. The driver must watch for the boost coming on and pull the trigger during certain boost levels so as to avoid leading out the engine and melting the piston. The driver then has to twiddle the outside temp knob to convince the computer to do, well, I couldn't figure it out, but the end result was that the first driver screwed up and melted all the pistons. I got video.
Now, if you watch the recap from last year, the 2016 B.F.E GP, you'll remember that Drop Packet Racing in there, Acura Integra, took the overall win and then burnt in the trailer on the way home.
Completely burst into flames.
Yeah. This year, they showed up, and the car looked amazing because they had left the whole back end of it burnt. And then the front end, I think they also left alone, which had not burnt. And the car looked great. It was fast, as it always is, and it actually made a pass in the very last hour to take the win again, going back to back.
And actually, the car that they passed was the Super Troop, another fantastic car. There was actually a lot of hella sweet cars here. Yeah. There was those guys. There was the Lincoln Mark 8. That thing was fantastic. There was the Pandemonium Express. What was that?
Yeah, so the Pandemonium Express was a BMW E30 converted into a pickup truck and turned into the Brat Turbo.
Yeah.
Or Brat Turbo, I should say. But they have this whole panda theme, and of course, being a Subaru Brat, it had to have the jump seats with the bicycle grips in the back, and they had that with stuffed pandas in it. That was great.
That was really good. Also on the leading lap was Sordic Racing and their mid-engined R5, fake R5 Turbo 2. Real R5. What is it, a Nissan motor mid-engine?
Infinity.
Incredible. That car was in P1. Never heard of something like that before. In fact, P1 in this race, there was lots of weird stuff. There was a Fiero in P1 for a while.
And so the Fiero was part of a two-car team. They raced before with the one Fiero, and they said, you know what would make this
volume,
better?
volume. Yeah.
And so they got the second one, and then they did this whole Guy Fiero theme.
Oh, so good.
Follow me to Failure Town.
And we had a TR8.
Yeah, and the TR8 was doing TR8 things. Also, hella sweet was a new penalty for this race. Phil went to the junkyard and got a seatbelt warning buzzer for the 1975 Chevy Vega.
When they really had that technology down.
Well, and I think Phil has somehow scientifically determined that this is the most annoying buzzer ever created by any company. And the penalty was, of course, to wire it into your car's electrical system so that it was continuously on, reminding you of safety as you drove.
On the subject of safety, you know, one of the safest guys in racing history was Smokey Yunick. He'd never do anything dangerous at all. Now, there was a CRX at this race. They had a great Smokey Yunick theme, about which I will talk more momentarily. But I just have to say, among other safe things that happened to this car, their entire rear panic bar just ripped out of the car in the middle of the race, and they had to get that welded back up. Now, I gotta say, however, these guys took their Smokey Yunick theme so far, they actually wrote to Smokey's daughter and said, hey, you got any Smokey crap, stickers, whatever? She liked them so much, she sent them Smokey's original hat. Now, we all know Smokey's most famous car was the 7/8 scale Chevrolet NASCAR, right? Apparently his hat, same kind of weight-saving technology.
Heroic Fix went to the Farmers and their Hyundai Accent, and they crapped out on Saturday. Their transmission totally irreparably exploded. And they turned in their transponder, they ripped off their wristbands, and they said, well, we're going to hang out, we're going to get drunk, and then we're going to leave tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And so they were sitting there in the pits drinking beer, and they said, after a while, after about beer number 7, you know what, man, I think I can fix that. That's no problem. And he had
that is how they do it at AMCO, actually.
They had a bucket of transmission parts. They ripped it out and, hey man, this is gonna rule. They put the gears back in and it worked. The next day they woke up like, oh, I'm so hungover. Oh God, what do we do to the car? And like, dude, we fixed it. No way. Went and got their transponder back and finished the race.
I Got Screwed was Team Kappa, and at first we didn't actually remember these guys because last year they came, they had a Civic, it never ran, and they brought a totally different vehicle that was much simpler and much better prepared because they didn't want to have that experience again. They wanted to get a lot of track time. So here's how that worked out.
Stood there boldly, sweating in the sun. Felt like a million, felt like number one. The height of summer, I'd never felt that strong, like a rock. I was 18, didn't have a care, working for peanuts, not a dime to spare. But I was leaning, solid everywhere, like a rock.
The special award for this race we were originally going to call the High Plains Drifter Award because it was late in the day and creativity and brain cells.
Can't be bothered.
Yeah. But then we realized that the car that we wanted to give the award to could not drift due to devastating lack of horsepower. So instead, we called it the High Plains Hoopty Award, and we gave it to Brits Go Racing and their stock 1974 Chevy El Camino, which just drove around and around and finished mid-pack, beat a bunch of BMWs, beat a bunch of V8 muscle cars. You know the story. It sucked. They were steady. They got an award. Judge's choice went to Buffs Racing and their Chevy Cavalier. Now, I was actually confused while I was sitting there because I knew that we wanted to give a hoopty old Cavalier some kind of an award, and there were 2 of them. And I thought initially, there's no way that there's 2 that are that bad at the same race. And in fact,
There's not going to be one bad and one good,
well,
to be fair.
That's true.
Yeah.
So the one that won the award, the other one, honorable mention, by the way, your
Right.
car was awful.
Right.
So we gave the award to Buffs Racing, and it was this group of college kids that had, I guess, by process of elimination, the more terrible of the 2 Chevy Cavalier. So these college kids were great. There was like 600 of them. Their car sucked, and they were all working on it. They had a great attitude, and they had to win something. They got Judge's choice.
Go, Buffs! The organizer's choice went to Tetanus Racing.
Yeah, and this is kind of a lifetime achievement
Right.
award. They've been around forever, and I actually thought that they had won some kind of major Lemons
You
award
would think
before.
that they would have. They've brought like 8 cars to every race
well,
for the last 10
and I
years.
distinctly remember like 5 years ago at No Problem Raceway in Louisiana filling out their name on an awards sheet,
Right.
and I was, how do you spell tetanus? And Phil pops up, there's an anus in there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, whether they have won this award or not in the past, they certainly have earned it now. So they've run lots of cars. They've brought lots of their friends in. They're just always having a good time. They brought their kids. So, the next generation of ruined souls are going to be lined up.
How's the race car doing?
Good.
Yeah? Is it fast?
Class B.
Tetanus does a great job. And at this race, this was now the 1-year anniversary of stalwarts, Anton and Sophie, getting married. And they got married in the HPR paddock by me, no less, last year. So it was their anniversary. Everybody deserved it. There's your org choice.
Now that it's your anniversary, how are you going to celebrate?
We're gonna have sex.
IOE goes to Down and Out Racing in the AMC Pacer. Now, this car is an ex-Speedy Cop car. It actually won IOE when it was still Speedy Cop. It got bought by Brett Holdaway and a bunch of yet another group of stalwart Colorado racers.
Yeah.
And this thing has a Jeep 4-liter straight six with a supercharger and an SU carburetor and a tunnel ram, and atop the tunnel ram is a second carburetor from a gas Volga. So it sort of has two carburetors connected vertically, and then it makes an L-shaped turn into a supercharger from like a Buick, and it goes into a Jeep straight six. And the thing, actually, the fact that it runs at all is incredible. And the fact that it ran as well as it did, I think it finished mid-pack.
Yeah.
It was just an amazing performance.
Well, and I think this is because they're actually pretty good mechanics. In fact, that CRX we talked about before, they helped them weld their entire car back together. They were up all night long.
They made it much safer.
They made it much safer, in fact, and we are all about safety. Somebody discovered, I think it was you, that their backstays weren't actually welded the way they were supposed to be. So they fixed that up because you know why? We're all about safety.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. All right, here's Lemons in a nutshell.
I'm in charge of safety.
How many laps? I'll put this on the Instagram. Excellent.
I was strong as I could be. Nothing ever got to me.
All right, cheers.